Drop caps are a time-honored way of introducing your reader to a new chapter or a new section in your text. Here's an example from the Gutenberg Bible of 1455. To apply a drop cap, insert your cursor into the text, come to the paragraph formatting options, and for now we're concerned with this option right here. This determines how many lines the character sinks into the text. The second line determines how many characters are made big, but we don't need that in this particular example. So here are a few different approaches to a drop cap. Frequently, a drop cap is combined with the first few words in all small caps to provide a transition from the drop cap character into the upper and lowercase text. Sometimes you might want to just increase the size of the drop cap character itself so that it sticks up above the cap height of the first line of type. Sometimes maybe you don't want a drop cap, but instead just an initial cap, a stick-up cap, and this is just achieved by making the first character larger than the rest. Again, it's followed by the first few words in all small caps. Or perhaps we want a very large first line indent combined with a stick-up cap. Or, and this is a little bit more involved, we could cut the character from the text, put it in its own separate text frame, which is anchored to the paragraph. And then that gives us a bit more flexibility in how we can scale that character. Or we want, again, to cut the character. So this isn't officially in InDesign terms a drop cap, but it serves the same function. Put the character into its own frame and then change the color of that frame. So those are just some suggestions. Here are some issues that you will run into when working with drop caps. Firstly, when your drop cap character is an I, you may find that it doesn't optically align with the left edge of the column. So there is an option to fix that. Now I can do this in two ways. I can do this locally, i.e. applied to just this instance. And I would come to the control panel menu and down to drop caps and nested styles. Or if this were controlled through a paragraph style, I would right click on the style name, edit, and come to drop caps and nested styles. In either place, the option that we want is this one. Align left edge. Now when I check that, watch this very carefully. If I turn on my preview, you can see that now moves to become flush with the left edge of the text frame. Certain characters, a J being an example, may create a character collision, and we can fix this. This time I'll do it locally just for a bit of variety. Drop caps and nested styles. The other option that we have is scale for descenders. And that is going to make the character smaller, but it's going to avoid it running into the text on the fourth line. Sometimes drop caps can create problems. So the first thing that you want to do before you decide upon using a drop cap as your opening chapter device is read the text, and if you find that you have a lot of text that begins with punctuation or begins with a single line, maybe you want to come up with a different solution because there are other ways of indicating to your reader that the chapter is about to begin. But if you do find yourself in a spot like this, where it's the punctuation that is being dropped, that is being made big, and it looks a bit silly at the moment, then you need to change to a 2-character drop cap. In addition, you might also want to kern the space between the punctuation and the letter. So I'm going to do that by holding down Option or Alt and tap the left arrow to bring the C closer. To bring it closer in bigger increments, I'm also going to add in the Command or Control key. Here's another problem to which there really isn't a very good solution. This problem is caused by the fact that the text begins with a single line paragraph. And that means that on line 2, we have the first line indent. Well, really all we can do here, because we don't want to avoid this space, is press delete at that point so that you actually make this part of the same paragraph. Now that is taking some liberties with the text, and I think it's okay, but I think the better solution really would be to use something other than drop caps. And then there's this kind of issue which we saw earlier when I was talking about baseline shift. Perhaps you have a character collision because you're working with a cursive or italic drop cap character, which in itself might be problematic, but if you're wedded to that, then you can perhaps fix that by using a baseline shift. And in this case, I'm also going to maybe increase the size a little bit so that the drop cap no longer bumps into the text of the first line. Now, as well as using drop caps for opening paragraphs, they can also be used in certain cases for lists. I don't think you want to go too far with this, but it can be an interesting solution sometimes. So if you are working on a listicle, as these things tend to be caused, you can actually have your number be a drop cap. And here I've applied a paragraph style to this text. Let's go and see what the style definition is. Drop caps and nested styles. You can see that I'm dropping the character 3 lines, a single character, aligning the left edge, and then I'm applying a character style, a predefined character style to the number, which in this case is changing its font, and it's also changing its color. And that works great until we get up to a 2-digit number where we have to manually intervene and just make sure that we have 2 characters that are being dropped.